All right. So, hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Empowered Self podcast. So, I am here with my good friend Johan. Johan and I actually met at a Kriya yoga retreat in Sweden a couple years ago, and we became really great friends through that process. Johan actually ended up shaving my head when we were there, and anytime a brother shaves another brother's head, it's a bond for life, you know? So, I'm really fortunate to have met him, and I've become really fond of him. And he's a very compassionate person and very generous and giving. So much so that we actually filmed a whole podcast yesterday. The file got corrupted, and yet here he is again, giving his time and his energy to this space. So I really appreciate you for being here and for doing this. And Johan also has gone to ayahuasca, done ayahuasca in Peru to the same shamans that I've worked with. So we're connected in that way. And not only that, but also he's come to London and he's lived with me and my mom for an entire week. And he spent a week like baking goods for us and just really sharing some of his culture with us. And it was a really beautiful experience. So I'm incredibly grateful to you for all that you've done for me and my family, Johan. And so why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit and tell the viewers some of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. My name is Johan, and I'm born and raised in Sweden, in this small town that I recently moved back to. And I've, yeah, what's going on for me? I'm a baker now. Um, I'm fulfilling my childhood dream. I am 35 years old, and yeah, it's kind of hard to put words on who you are when you start to identify less with the person that's behind this. But yeah, so my name is Johan. I live in Sweden, and I bake, and I meditate a lot.
Yeah, so as you can see, everyone, the one of the reasons why me and Johan get along so well is because we are deep meditation practitioners, and basically we have this ability or we have this desire in our lives to pursue philosophy and basically understand the deeper meaning of things. And so, yeah, as you can tell, Johan loves non-duality. And basically, non-duality says that, like, even though we're here having a human experience, that doesn't necessarily mean that we are just this human experience. People would say that to some degree or another, we transcend that and we are consciousness having a human experience temporarily, but that consciousness transcends this life. It was here before we were born, it'll be here after. And through different practices, you can tap into these types of states. So when you start to understand this, you become less and less attached to who you are from an egotistical perspective, and you become more connected to the whole world around you, not necessarily as caught up in the desires of your everyday life or the different storylines that we tell ourselves and the different beliefs that we've been programmed to believe since we were little. So it's a really great practice of exploration into consciousness and into what this experience actually is. And for those who have partook in this journey of self-exploration, a lot of them find it quite virtuous because if you understand your being better and how your system functions, then it can help to alleviate suffering and it can help to bring more happiness and joy into your life and make those difficult moments easier and make those positive moments even lighter and brighter. So, yeah, that's a little sample of non duality in some of these practices. But Johan is a professional baker. Like he said, he's living his childhood dream. And Johan, to some degree or another, you can speak on behalf of yourself here, but making food for other people is a lot of your dharma. It's your source purpose and it's what you find enjoyment of the most. So, what is it about cooking that you really enjoy, and why do you find baking as a vehicle for the awakening of consciousness?
Hmm. I mean, baking for me started early in my life. I think it became a thing for me growing up with a grandma that was always baking and always bringing different goods to us, and also a mom that was pretty invested in cooking and making home cooked food on a daily basis, even though she was working full time. And she was also baking, and I was sitting on the counter basically, with this package of butter. There's this picture. I'm like holding this package of butter, and I'm like 2 years old, and I'm just watching my mom cook and bake. So it's always been there for some reason. So I have fond memories, but it's not only the fond memories, but it's been with me continuously through life as a passion, as something that has been. I think it's pretty clear as I'm thinking about memories. The food, it's more like what I've been eating that comes to mind many times. And also traveling, like if I travel for food basically, most of the time, if I don't do ayahuasca or retreats and such. But food is like the culture that I'm mostly interested in usually. And food also, it goes so deep in all the cultures and all the spiritual cultures as well. And it's connected to us. We become what we eat. And also that feeling of eating your mom's food or your grandma's food, you're eating the love, that's represented or that's channeled through the food. And as it is, that's creative process. It's a beautiful way of putting your energy into something. And I think that people that eat home cooked food can relate to that. How many people that say they love, mom's food is always the best. If
Mhm.
And maybe it's not because the flavor or the technique, but it's the love that goes into it, I think. And yeah, for me it doesn't get more, let's say, spiritual than that. And it's transfer of energy, of love, basically, that goes through that. And I also, famously known in the States, you talk about soul food. Uh, and I think that says a lot. It's the soul that is portrayed in the food. Someone is putting their soul into the food, and that's what you then are eating. And you feel comforted, you feel nurtured, you feel love. Even people can cry. It can really stir up some deep emotions when you eat food. So it's very connected to us on a deep level in ways we don't maybe think about. And but if we are tuned in and if we're actually eating consciously, and if we're aware, we can definitely tap into this energy and feel this. And I think it's very important to try and take your time when we're eating, or actually when we're doing anything, to be in the present moment, to actually be direct with what is here in our experience. And then for me, baking has kind of helped me find my way back to what I like, what I am passionate about. Because I think it's so easy to kind of, through programming and through the life that we live, especially in the West, we get bombarded with information and things we should do, should not do, should not eat, and so on, should eat. To find my way back to what I am mostly passionate about. And also seeing that this is also kind of a purpose for me, like the strength that you have in life, things that comes easy to you is usually the things that you should partake in. It's showing you, as long whenever you have inspiration, inspiration is your soul, it's inspiration is your soul speaking. And you should always go with inspiration, go towards it. But I think anyone can have, spurges of inspiration, but maybe see them as maybe they come and go. Yeah, but I think it's because we have inspiration, it feels really good, but then fear comes, mind comes and corrupts it. No, you can't do that. But what about the money? What about this and that and that? But if you just put yourself out of the way and just go for it, usually everything that you need in life will come to you. That is my experience, and I know it's a lot of other people's experiences too. So yeah, there's a lot to say here regarding food as a spiritual practice as well. Like to me, it's also like a meditation. I think anyone that go on like a creative endeavor will know what I'm talking about. You know, whether it's painting or baking or cooking or playing sports, and you get into this kind of flow state where kind of time disappear, where even you disappear, but it's just what is happening. The dough or the golf club, or you kind of forget about yourself. The mind is not here anymore. It's just a direct um, experience of what's happening.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And I think there is a little bit of a non-dual teaching within that because I was listening to somebody the other day talk about how they're not necessarily like fascinated with like what people are like interested in or inspired by it, but it's like what makes somebody inspired to be like a tennis player as opposed to somebody be inspired to be a chef. Like, of
Mhm.
course, different people have different interests, but like, what is behind that that causes one person to want to do one thing and one person to want to do another? Well, that is your soul, right? Exactly what you were saying. So we can definitely tell where we're being guided and where our purpose is based off of the things that we enjoy the most, and the things that we're interested in and actually find ourselves being pulled towards. So yeah, I think that's really great advice, and that does show sort of what we're talking about, how we do exist beyond just this egotistical place. And through entering into that flow state of doing the things that we love, we can start to tap into these greater senses of self that aren't as self-involved. But I wanted to ask you, what advice would you have to people as to how they can develop a healthier relationship to food? What's a simple thing that everybody can do to have a more healthier relationship to food?
I mean, for once, I think be aware, be conscious, take your time when it comes to cooking, be there, even if it's not, the your most favorite thing to do. Try to take your time, because your energy input and your awareness, it's what's kind of activating this food too, with your energy. And as well as eating it, it's be there, be aware, and not be in what am I going to do later? What am I going to watch on TV? It's so rare that people are, very they are here with what's happening right now, and they're taking in, you're taking in the scents, you're taking in the flavors, the textures, the mouthfeel, everything. And that itself, it's meditation, or honestly, it's life. Like, it's the directness of life. Call it meditation or whatever. But to me, that is living, because you are here. You're not in your mind. You're not thinking about what you're gonna do. You're not talking to. Of course, you can have a conversation, but also be there with your food. Um, and then when it comes to like choosing food, I mean, it can be more difficult. I mean, depending on what kind of lifestyle you have, of course. If you have kids, there's like a totally different, setup. You don't have time. Um, but I think like go with intuition, but that is also easy to say, Maybe people are not that connected to their intuition, and they don't maybe listen into what the body wants or what it actually needs. But really, I would say try to take if you have the possibility, try to take a step back and see if like you are really hungry, or you're eating from routine,
Mhm.
because the body will tell you if you really notice it. And for me, um, it's quite obvious, because when I'm hungry, if I listen to the body, the food is really good, like it's really tasty when I eat. But if it's just like, this shoving in, and you don't know, yeah, it's okay, it's food, then I wasn't really hungry, and the need to eat wasn't really there. But we're so like institutionalized, or we're just so blind to this. We're just eating because you're supposed to eat breakfast, you're supposed to eat lunch, you're supposed to eat that. So it's just like this kind of blind sight, of not being aware, I think. But I know it's difficult, and but anything to become a little bit more aware, a little bit more observant of what's going on, I
Mm.
think would help.
Yeah, and at least with my journey with food, like if you don't mind, I'll tell a little backstory in the tangent. But when I was around 24 years old, I went to Thailand to live as a Buddhist monk, right? And so this was one of my first real interactions with mindful eating. Because their way, basically every spiritual community I've studied from on the planet does have some form of ritual around eating, and they have some form of relationship that they've established to it that increases awareness of your food intake. So for the monks, they basically will eat breakfast and they'll eat lunch, and then you won't be able to eat anything after 12 o'clock, right? So basically, they have some sort of intermittent fasting routine. And this forces you to look at food on a deeper level. And I got there, and for the first couple weeks, I had a pretty good time with this. But and I found that I was incredibly addicted to sugar at this time and processed foods. And I was sort of raised on processed foods in a lot of ways. So I didn't realize how bad my addiction was until I got to the temple. And like about a month in on the really stressful days, and almost every day when things were starting to get difficult, I would find myself going to the snack container, like taking some snacks and hiding them away in my bag, running a kilometer up a mountain to go hide in the forest to eat these sugary snacks. And I would do this every day. Like I was so unbelievably addicted to processed sugar and processed foods as a vehicle to make me feel better when I'm in difficult times. That I couldn't not do it, basically. Like there were days that I'm walking up that mountain, and keep in mind, a kilometer walk up a mountain takes a good 15 or 20 minutes. So I have 15 or 20 minutes every day to contemplate my decisions as I'm walking up there. And I'm sitting there being like, I know this is wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. I know this is wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. And step by step, I'd still make my way up that mountain and eat the entire container of goodies that I took when I'm not supposed to be doing this, right? Anyway, long story short, my journey started with a very unhealthy relationship to food. But through intermittent fasting, this was like the main thing that helped me start to look at food in a healthier way. I basically yeah, started to understand the relationship that I had with food, and the effect that food was having on me, and the attachment that I had that was causing me suffering. So yeah, basically my recommendation for people is yeah, basically for me, I also have a difficult time being aware when I'm eating, even to this day. But intermittent fasting stopped that compulsive behavior. It said, like, no, I'm not just going to do this without awareness. I'm going to bring awareness into it. And that helped me develop more of a routine. And what I find that I do now is sort of see eating as a ceremony, where before I'll eat, I'll like basically, set it down on the table. And as opposed to just diving in and starting to eat right away, I'll try and like take a moment and breathe before I actually start eating the food, right? And I'll like say a little thing of thanks on the food before I eat it, right? And that like basically looking it in an intentional way and doing it as sort of a ritual of devotion and love can help slow you down, bring you into your body, bring you into awareness, and allow it to become a more aware process. So that's some general tips for me for the people watching at home. If you want to develop a healthier relationship to food, awareness is huge, and there are different vehicles to which you can use to help bring more awareness into your eating. So, in what ways, Johan, have you found you've been able to bring more awareness into your eating process? Is there any useful tips or tricks you have for people?
Well, I mean, for me, it started as well with intermittent fasting, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now. So it's very integrated into the way that I live. And for me, it was so easy to kind of, I don't know, my body just felt good from it. And so it was easy to kind of continue on that path. And then, when I came into more spiritual practices, it was, you consecrated the food, and that's the same, right? You give thanks basically for everything that goes behind the food, because it's so easy to forget, right? all the people that may be behind, the food coming to your plates, all the farming, seeding, all the transporting, all the moving in the different to the different shelves of the store, all of these people that are working to try to get food and money on the table for their family, so thinking of these people and give thanks for that. I think it's a great practice to do with everything that you're basically consuming. And again, it's to do that you become more present and more aware and more like it helps you to see, how we're all connected, like how we all are connected. So those are some of the
Mm.
tips that I have, taking the time. And I remember like even I came back to my family and I started doing it, and they're like, "What are you doing?" Because it's quite rare, especially in Sweden, that anyone has any kind of prayer before their food. Um, and now, kind of my niece and my nephew, they're like, "Johan is
Nice.
meditating.
Yeah.
Look at it," So yeah, they're curious, and it kind of I think it helps them also kind of just like stop. If you just stop a little bit, it's all to become okay. Now it's time to eat. But I know how common it is as well to have food as an escape, as have like comfort eating as well, just as you have had as well. I've had that too.
Your story gives a great example of like leadership by example, right? And so, you were saying how you used to get some judgment and projection from the people around you for doing these practices. But now your nephews are like, oh, Johan's meditating, right? And so, yeah, I think that is a really great story to show people that like this is how we can change cultural programming is through undoing it in ourselves, breaking that karmic cycle, carving out a new path, and then other people will have an opportunity to follow that leadership, right, through example. But I also too have another monk story that I wanted to share, and I just wanted to hear your opinion on it. But when I first got to the temple, I didn't have much of an issue with food, let's say, right? Like, we had basically a buffet style for breakfast and lunch, and I would like fill it all up and eat as much as I wanted, like enjoy all the different Thai foods. And it was incredible. Like I would sit there and mindfully eat every single meal, closing my eyes, just feeling in the sensations of every single bite. And there was sometimes where I was like just in total joy as I was experiencing this, like some of the most profound joy I've had in my life. And so much so it even got crazy because one day we were sitting there in the washroom, and one of the monk brothers had asked, they were like, if you could have anything from back home here in Thailand, like what would it be? And I actually said out loud, I was like, oh, I'd love to have a pizza. I really used to love pizza, and I'm kind of missing it now. So I'd love a pizza. The next day for lunch, the senior monk comes out and he's like, everyone, I have an announcement. I have no idea how this happened. There's no pizza place within a kilometer of here or within like an hour's drive of here. And yet somehow somebody donated pizza for all of you today. So you get pizza, right? And I'm like, what just happened, right? Like that was a totally divine synchronicity. Like it was unbelievable. So anyway, I enter into the monastery with this really healthy relationship to food. Things are good. And then one day there was this another monk who I had ordained with, who was from a country that had more confrontation and had more conflict. And he comes up to me and he's like, John, like, what are you doing when you're eating? Right. And I'm like, I'm just basically mindfully eating and I'm focusing on the process of doing it. And he's like, oh, I've never heard anyone do that before. Like, that's, weird practice, whatever. And immediately I started to become self-conscious of how I was eating. Right. And then my eating almost spiraled out of control. Like I stopped doing it mindfully. I never got back on track fully in the same way when I was in that dynamic. And that's when I started to go up into the mountain and basically start shamefully eating these junk foods. And I think part of the process was because of I didn't have shame in the way I was eating before. I was just enjoying it. I was loving it. I was allowing myself to express that part of me. And then when I started to hear a sort of judgment from somebody whose opinion I respected deeply because they're a senior and I hold respect for everyone. It really started to generate this shame within me, and this shame that I was feeling started to cause this unhealthy relationship to food. I don't want to say it caused it, but that was the outlet to which I expressed my shame in some level or another. And you talked about how these attachments to food can be difficult to overcome. Well, one of the ways that I've been able to overcome all of that has been letting go of the shame that I feel, right? And like letting go of my guilt and basically healing
Mm.
the internal feelings that are causing me to lash out and to go seek something to feel better. It's like I had to feel better within my body somatically, heal all the things that were preventing me from feeling good. And now that I feel so good and whole and complete, I don't have the same sort of attachments or the same issues because I don't need them. Right. So if we want to talk about healing our relationship to cravings and to desires and to external satisfaction, it comes from finding internal satisfaction.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I totally agree with that. And what might be good to kind of so to say develop when it comes to, letting go of shame, or, becoming more embodied, becoming more whole. Like, can I just ask you for like how did you let go of shame? What does that look like? Because for many people I know it's just like, it's just words, letting go. I don't
Mhm.
know what letting go of shame means, or what I do, so to say. Maybe you can just like talk on
Yeah,
that
of
for
course. And
a few
I'm going to get
viewers.
super vulnerable for a minute. And I'm going to share something that is the first time that I've ever shared this publicly on social media. But to give you a real, uh, 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 basically window into my past, when I was very little, and this is one of my first childhood memories, but I was sort of sexually molested by another older man. Right. So, like, basically, we're in my room together, and this guy is older. And so he suggests that we start doing these things, and I agree because I have no idea what I'm doing. And yeah, basically, again, in this moment, it didn't feel as if it was a bad thing, right? Like when I'm engaging in these sexual acts with another man and I'm a young age, it feels very innocent and there's no issues whatsoever. But then a few years pass. This is when I was like, let's say 5 to 7 years old. And I end up in high school, right? And all of a sudden, there enters in this basically, what's the proper word for it? Homophobia, where people are like really against this sort of actions. And there's basically a huge
Wow.
suppression of anything to do with that, category of existence, two men interacting in sexual relationships together. So all of a sudden, friends would make fun of each other for being gay and all these things. And it's not necessarily to say that I was having these feelings for other guys, but it was like I had a memory of engaging in a gay act when I was little. So I'm like, if these guys ever found out about it, they're gonna fucking hate me. Like I'm gonna lose all my friends. It's gonna be the worst thing ever. So I started to develop all of this shame for what had happened to me and all of this sort of guilt around that experience, as if maybe I could have done something different or like, whatever. So I had basically a lot of the mental health issues that I ever faced in my life came from shame from this initial moment very early on in my life that I had no control over. There was no consent, and I had no idea how it was going to affect me later on. Right. But looking back, what would happen is I would be sitting there in my experience of reality, and I'd have memories come up from this event, right? Like some part of me was trying to address this occurrence. And what I would do again and again is whenever that would come up, is like push it away. Like, no, I don't want to deal with that now. I don't want to face that right now. I'm going to
Yeah.
pretend like that never happened. Right. But then every couple months or so, these thoughts would come back up, like, face this, address this, address this. And I would push it away and push it away and push it away. And as long as I would do that, the shame would continue to get worse and worse and worse. But eventually, there became a moment where I said, like, you know what? Um, I don't care that this happened. I'm okay with it. I accept it. I love who I am. Even if this is a part of me, then I can love that part of me. And this wasn't like an instantaneous shift, but it was like I started to accept myself. Then I found a little bit more self love. Then I could accept more of myself. Then I found more self love. And it was this like unfolding of this self-love and this acceptance of myself, that basically allowed me to overcome this shame and guilt that I was feeling. So the more I could accept that this had happened, accept that this is who I am, and basically not repress a part of myself and judge it for being unworthy or being disgusting or whatever, the more I did that, the more the shame and the guilt went away. So through this deep process of shame teaching that I received through this child sexual molestation, it's helped me to acknowledge different areas of my life that also caused shame and stuff like that as well. So yeah, it's that's what worked for me, and I'm not saying that that's going to work for everybody, but yeah, I have been there, and it does feel like at times it's an impossible thing to overcome. But truly, love is the medicine, and love heals all wounds. And we are our greatest source of love, right? Like if you look for external love from other people, there's no guarantee that it will come, or it's circumstantial, or a lot of the times, there's different driving forces behind that love, but you can learn to love yourself at all times unconditionally and never need love from anyone else outside of you. And when you get to that point, that is true liberation, you know? So,
Mhm. Yeah, word. Beautiful, man. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for being vulnerable. I think it's amazing. And it's for us to be vulnerable so that more people can open up and
mm,
also see that it's okay to be vulnerable. And it takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage. So,
yeah. Thank you, brother.
credit to you. And I want to I want to also talk of that, because again, right? You said you needed to face that, you needed to accept that, whatever happened, and embrace that as a part of you, you know. And what does that process look like? Because like for me, is it to me it when I've been working with things that is maybe jealousy, maybe memories that makes me anxious, shame or whatever. To me, acceptance is or non-judgment.
Mm,
It is feeling the feelings. It's feeling the feelings that comes up through, let's say, memories. And these memories doesn't have to be true or false. It's not about that, but it's a memory that it's happening now. So it is true to what is happening now. It is what's happening. It's your experience. And that needs to be integrated or it needs to be allowed. And to me, it's just sitting with it and not go to the stories around it. So finding the place maybe in our body or outside our body, which feels uncomfortable or contracted, and penetrate it with awareness, and which equals love. Awareness is love, and love is the same thing. Like your full attention into something is love. It is the awareness that goes to something and it allows it. It's usually something, as you said, that wants your attention. Like, please just see me, just feel me, allow me to be here. Sometimes I talk about like all your emotions or memories being like a palette of colors, and some colors are still missing. Some still hasn't we haven't acknowledged, we haven't found them yet. And the way to do that is to allow these feelings. And I see these feelings or memories as colors. And then when we allow them, it's like we're taking back the colors so that we can have a full palette of our colors. And that is how we become whole, like our whole spectrum of light and color. And so that is kind of my process. And
yeah, amazing.
to look
And I really think that's a great description of it. Carl Jung talks about individuation as if it's the process of bringing all parts of yourself into union. And he actually has a story where he's working with a client who's dealing with psychological disturbances. And the guy is like a pretty straight and narrow guy. Like, he goes to work, he works a 9 to 5 job, he comes home and he just relaxes on the weekend. Like, doesn't really he's always saving money. He never gets in car accidents. Like he's a really good dude. And he starts having these psychological issues. And he goes to see Carl Jung. And Carl Jung basically tells him, he's like, you need to start partying. Like you need to start enjoying your life more, right? Like you need to start, expressing this part of yourself that maybe you don't feel good about expressing because you think it won't make you a good person, or for whatever reason, there's fear around that person expressing that part of themselves. But when they do, the psychological disturbance disappears. They feel all their feelings. They allow themselves to do whatever it is that they wish to do. And they gain their power back over the programming that prevents us from being who we're here to be. And that's when you complete yourself. That's when you individuate yourself in the process, realizing that, like, on when you get to the understanding that everything happens for a divine purpose, you can see that partying is good. You can see that some level of homosexuality is good. You can see that everything is good, and there's no right or wrong in anything. So basically, anytime that you have some sort of issue coming up, there's love and then there's fear. And if there's an issue, then to some degree or another, that's fear. Right. So for me, with like this homosexuality thing, it's like fear that I'm gonna have these feelings and that other people are gonna judge me. Right. And it's through basically accepting that, you know what, like there isn't a reason to fear this. This is an okay thing. It's not bad in any sort of way. Let go of the judgment of it. Then I could allow myself to feel the feelings, express them. And since then, those thoughts that I was having never have happened since, right? Completely gone from my being because of the fact that I allowed them to be expressed, because I addressed it and let go of them. And that psychological disturbance disappeared. So, yeah, it's funny how we often as humans categorize things as good and bad. But what non duality teaches and what we're trying to evolve to as a society is letting go of this mental description of right or wrong and coming back to unity, which is accepting the good and the bad, the dark and the light of life fully.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the full potential, like existence is full potential of everything. It needs to be everything, everything exists, everything can happen, everything will happen. And you are that full potentiality, as you say. And right, because even light or dark, again, is also just words. Um, because not even, yeah, it's like the closest, or it's a good analogy, but you can't even find words for
Hmm.
everything, all the
Cool.
possibilities.
So I wanted to ask you a question because I have become really fond of our brothership and our connection, and having you here has really helped me. And just in general, like I really enjoy talking to you because of the fact that I do get to express these parts of myself and talk about things that I'm interested in. And there's this quote within Buddhism that says like spiritual friendship is the entirety of the spiritual path. They're saying that like it's almost impossible to do this alone. We need to rely on each other's support in order to get through this difficult initiation that we're undertaking. So I wanted to ask you, like, what is the importance of spiritual friendship or brothership from your perspective?
I think it's, yeah. I know Ramdas talked about this too. He talked about um, relationship, like having these kind of rare relationships. They could be friends, they could be partners, even family members. But those are like this support through your whole process. The more you can open, the more you will attract other people that are open. And there's more, I think, for myself at least, it's kind of, I want to talk about what more and more what's here, about my immediate experience, more about truth. Those are things that has been like awakening and projected in me. And so you want to find people that you can resonate with. And through that, it's so cool because through these people that you meet, it's like you open even more, like, and you can feel like the synergy between the people. It's like it's developed in that way. So for me, my community is where I can be totally vulnerable all the time. It's never feeling judged. It just this tremendous importance. And when I went to Peru and I did ayahuasca with Celinda, I remember one of the insights I had from doing the dieta, the medicine omarosa, was I felt I've never felt as rich as I did. I remember even I wrote down all the names of people, that meant a lot to me, where I could have this open-hearted, communication with, and I just felt so blessed, so rich, and I remember she said, like, "This is real intelligence, this is real intelligence when you realize, it's not money or material things, and it's like the people that you resonate with, and everyone that you meet kind of, everyone is different, right? Everyone is unique, and they kind of help you open up in different ways, and they open your channel in different ways so that more light can kind of stream through you. And it's also interesting because you can meet people and then this channel open, and you start healing them. You're not doing anything really, you're just meeting them, just open up something, and then that is communicated, and that's exactly what they needed to hear so that they can open up and feel whatever they need to feel. So it's just like this beautiful constant, like synchronicities that happens through these connections. And for me, y- and for many many other people, I think that you kind of stop being surprised by these coincidences that happens or miracles that take place in your life, things that appear exactly when you need something, or getting a sign or whatever it might be. So yeah, I think these relationships are it's so important because they become more unconditional in a sense, right? There's no I don't feel there's this expectations of like reaching out either. You should keep in contact this and this much. That kind of disappeared as well. So it's more like if someone reaches out, that's awesome, and you have this beautiful talk, and maybe don't talk for 2 months or even a year, and then but still it's nothing has changed. And I think we have that even in childhood with close friends. We see that, yeah, nothing has really changed, it's still here. So yeah, I mean, this community is yeah, I feel so blessed and so grateful for the people in my life. And as Ramdas said, we're all walking each other home at the end of the day. And there's no hierarchy. We're same level always, but we're just holding each other's hand and walking alongside each
Yeah,
other
amazing. And
into.
I think what you touched on about how when you interact with people of a similar frequency, certain channels open up that are beyond your control or beyond their control. And to me, that's like unbelievably true. Like it
Mhm.
seems that there are certain aspects of relationships that unlock parts of ourself that are inaccessible if not for that key code or like that frequency of the other person activating it within us. And I think this comes back to teachings of nature and the cycles of all existence, where it's like we wouldn't be able to breathe air if it wasn't for the trees putting oxygen into the atmosphere, right? And it's like seeds and plants wouldn't be able to grow if it wasn't for the water that nourishes them and that activates that growth potential within them. So it's like we are in continual relationship with everything around us. And through those interactions, enable us to grow into our highest most capable selves. And without unlocking that connection, then you're missing out on potential growth and evolution that could take place because you don't have the energy or the sustenance or the nutrients to awaken these parts of yourself within you. Um, I've even found this to be true, and you might be able to speak on this as well, of certain areas of the planet having certain frequencies that allow activations in you to occur, that literally you have to go to that place on the planet in order to get that genetic key code that awakens something within you. This comes back to the whole purpose thing and the divine synchronicity thing, where it's like some people will genuinely feel drawn to a specific place for those reasons. And it's funny because, I Thailand has played a huge role in my life. And when I was in like grade 8, I actually had a school project where I could choose any animal in the world, and I chose like a Bengal tiger from Thailand. Right. And then when I was in high school, I had a project where you could do a business idea in any country. And I chose making a Tim Hortons cart in Thailand, like a street cart selling Timmy's donuts for Thailand. So even before I had any sort of inclination to go become a monk there, Thailand was already calling some aspect of my being and aligning me with that frequency so that I could go and learn those lessons and, become who I'm supposed to be. So, yeah, I really think if we can all start to potentially realize this about how beneficial connections actually are and really prioritize making connections, it would help a lot of us in so many different ways to get the support we need and to feel more fulfilled and happy in life. And so that's why I think what you're doing is so beautiful, because making food for people and being a chef is not only providing them with energy of love through the food that they get to receive into their body to nourish them, but also food brings people together, right? And what a gift that is, to have conversations around the
Mm,
dinner table, to involve
mm,
others in the ritual of awareness and connection,
mm,
and especially baked goods, because like you said, everyone loves their mother's cooking. It's like that's
mhm.
something that really drives connection. So yeah.
Exactly, and that's you, as you talked about before, you see eating more as, a ceremony today, right? A ritual. And you know, having that at the bakery, like I feel I'm in a ritual while I'm baking. It's a ceremony making all this food for people that then come and pick it up. And also it's like building community and see the smile on their faces and get all the support from the community around here. It's more than I ever could have, imagined. And because people, they recognize something, they recognize that there's someone, this me channeling, making food, having this passion of giving back to the community. And that brings people together. And yeah, I just feel so blessed to be, a part of that. And I think my vision as well, that came to me a couple of years ago, was that there was this resistance to moving back to my hometown because there wasn't, enough options of food or bakeries or restaurants. And then I just realized, well, I can be the solution to that. Why can I not be the change? Why cannot my hometown become um, a place to be known for the food, instead of just waiting, for or being in a specific place that has this. And especially as I was passionate about food, I like cooking, I like baking, it came very natural to me. So for me, it's like, wow, this is a perfect way to give back. Um, and another reason to move back home, uh, and kind of get reconnected
Mm.
to
Yeah,
my
beautiful.
roots.
And
Yeah.
I'm in a similar story in some ways because I also went off and learned different things. And now I'm back in London, and I feel like there isn't much of a community here compared to some other spiritual communities I've been a part of. And part of my dharma is building one, right? So, like, what I'll be doing now is being that change, is creating opportunities for people to come together. And, it's funny because this theme of like food being a vehicle for awakening and for love has come up multiple times in my life recently. I know a girl I just talked to, and she's a very high vibrational being who has a lot of incredible awareness and insight. And she's moving into the business of catering events, creating charcuterie boards of like all these beautiful fruits and vegetables and foods made with love, to any event that would like to have her. And so yeah, this concept has come up a couple times in my life recently, and so I think we're all being asked to some degree or another to look at our relationship to food and say, how can we transmute this into a higher vibrational expression of our relationship to food? And I think you're a great example. And I think catering is a great example. And I think bringing more awareness into our relationship to food is another really amazing thing. So, yeah, food has certainly had an incredible impact in my life, and thank you for all the food that you've baked me when you were here, because again, it really served me well to have that in my freezer after you left. But yeah, I just want to sort of wrap things up a little bit here and just ask you, like, is there any final message that you'd like to share with our audience today? Anything that you're inspired to say, and any final sort of topic that you'd like to cover?
Well, it kind of came to me now, hearing you talk about, creating a community, bringing people together, and the difficult with that too, depending on where you live and how spiritual connection, connected people are. And I realized, as well in the last couple of weeks that this whole, I already have a yoga business, a meditation business, and but it's through the bakery, it's through my main passion, which I get connected to all of these people. I mean, I have over 500 followers already on my Facebook in just, a couple of weeks. Through following my passion, my inspiration, I am able to reach people in a much bigger scale. So sometimes, if you also want to influence people, I think the best way is to actually follow your passion, even if, yeah, spiritual things and teaching, and there can be many different ways of doing it. But as you kind of, again, as you're following your passion, as you're following your inspiration, people feel that, people see that, and you will get acknowledged, and you will get the support and the love that you need, and you will be able to reach people, and you will be able to spread your energy and your wisdom through that. So again, it's like coming back to your passions and your inspirations. It's so important to live, I think, a prosperous life, both when it comes to feel fulfilled, right? um, Both, creatively, um, probably also, when it comes to abundance, whatever is, meant for you will come to you. And it's not really about manifesting, wanting this or that, or manifesting all your dreams. It's just about following your passion. I think that will open up for everything that is meant for you, because you cannot even imagine all the abundance that will be there for you. You can't even imagine what is right for you. How will you know what is right for you from mind? You know, I want a car, I want a house. But just follow your passion, follow your intuition, and your heart, and all of these things will be given to you, and more than you ever could dream about, or and yeah, more than you ever
Mm.
could imagine will follow. And that's, and for me to be, yeah, to me to kind of embody that, and to be an inspiration and a practical example for other people.
Beautiful.
So yeah,
And just to add
that's
on
my
that, I
passion.
think I want to talk a little bit about abundance too, and just reflect and say that abundance comes in many different forms as well, right? So when you are following your purpose, know that like abundance is not just financial. Like Johan said, the fact that he's created this community around him of 500 different people, think of like all the connections within that and all the networking that might take place, and all the opportunities that will come from those different connections you're making. So as we follow our purpose, I think for me, acknowledging my own abundance that I already have has been really grateful, has been really helpful in basically helping me to feel more abundant in my life. Like it's not, you don't have to look for abundance outside of yourself, but you can find abundance that's already within. And part of it exists in like the small aspects of you following your purpose. It's not always just financial, or abundance doesn't always just look one specific way. Often it comes in many different forms. So keep an eye out for the abundance that you do have and appreciate every little thing, and that will generate even more abundance in your life to get the bigger and better things in divine timing when it's right. So with that being said, Johan, my brother, I love you so much. Thank you for being here and for doing this, and again giving your time so generously to this space.
Thank you.
I know there are a lot of people who will really resonate with what you had to say today, and I think people just are grateful for you for sharing your vulnerability and your truth, and letting yourself be seen and your voice to be expressed in this way. So I really want to honor you and thank you for being here and thank you for doing this.
Mm.
I am going to go ahead and link Johan's Facebook page in the video description so you guys can check that out. And Johan might be running some retreats in the future. So I can also keep you guys posted on that if you're ever interested, maybe in Sweden, maybe in Iceland. Would be cool to go over there and do some of those Swedish retreats. So we know Sweden is a very
Yeah,
special land, so we'll see what
please
happens
do.
there. But thank you, Johan. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video. Peace.
Peace.
Amazing.